Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine challenging one of the most fundamental assumptions we make about reality, time. What if that relentless ticking clock, that march from past to future, isn't as fundamental as we think? Today, we're taking a deep dive into some truly mind-bending scientific and philosophical emergent time models. We're exploring the radical idea that time might not be a primary aspect of reality at all. Our mission in this deep dive is to understand what this revolutionary perspective means for you. We're focusing on how information, and consciousness too, could play these profound central roles in defining the universe's true nature. And this isn't just a tweak, right? It's a complete shift in understanding, moving us from like a linear temporal sequence to a timeless informational substrate where our experience of time actually arises from.
It's definitely a challenging concept, mainly because it goes so against our everyday intuition. But these sources, they lay out a surprisingly coherent framework. If time is indeed emergent, then, well, information is often proposed as the very bedrock of existence.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's not just that information describes reality. You're saying information is the substance of reality.
Yeah,
It's massive reframe.
that's precisely the core insight. Yeah. Think of John Archibald Wheeler's famous idea, it from bit.
Hmm.
He proposed that every physical entity, even space-time itself, fundamentally arises from information or binary choices. The really profound implication here is that information isn't secondary to matter or energy, it's more primal. In this view, reality could be a computational structure,
Hmm.
or maybe definitional, something that generates what we perceive as the illusion of a material world.
Like the universe is just running on pure data.
Kind of, yeah. The tripod model, for instance, it views information, consciousness, and reality as these three interdependent pillars. It strongly aligns with this. It treats information as the fundamental substance.
Huh. So if information is this timeless fundamental bedrock,
Mhm.
how does something as fluid and, ever-changing as time possibly emerge from it? This is where my brain starts to stretch a bit.
Right, that's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And this is where models like Shu Fukushima's definition field offer a fascinating potential answer. This field is proposed as a purely abstract, a temporal domain of information. Think of it as a realm of pure definitions and logical relationships. And that acts as the foundational layer of reality.
Abstract.
And temporal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the critical part is that in this timeless substrate, there's no inherent time, no space, no matter, not initially. Instead, patterns arising from its internal coherence. They later manifest as temporality, spatiality, and physical interaction.
Patterns, okay.
So the mind-bending takeaway here is that time doesn't emerge from some pre-existing physical background or some prior time. It emerges from a logically structured field of information. It's sort of like the blueprint becomes the building, and the sequence of building, that process, is what we call time.
Wow. Okay, this truly challenges everything we think we know. I mean, if time isn't fundamental, then asking, did time have a beginning, suddenly becomes, well, almost a nonsense question, right? Exactly. It reframes the question entirely. Our experience flow of time is secondary. The underlying informational reality could be an atemporal infinite. Imagine reality not as a developing photograph, but as a complete infinite novel. Our experience of time is simply the act of reading one sentence after another, even though the entire story, past, present, and future, exists already, timelessly, within that novel.
The whole story's already written.
In a sense, yeah.
Yeah.
This timeless platform is what generates our illusion of a time-bound universe. So the concept of a beginning in a temporal sense, it just doesn't apply to the fundamental reality itself.
Okay, and if time is emergent and reality is fundamentally informational, then consciousness must take on an incredibly profound role, a potentially pervasive role even. It's no longer just some accidental byproduct of complex biology sitting on top of everything else.
That's a crucial point, yeah. A central idea kicking around in these models is that consciousness might be inherently tied to information processing. If information is the substance of reality, then any sufficiently complex information pattern could potentially generate consciousness, whether that's in a biological brain like ours or a sophisticated silicon computer down the line.
So consciousness isn't necessarily this late arrival on the scene.
It implies it might not be an accidental or late emerging phenomenon at all. Instead, it could be an inherent aspect that has always existed in some form, especially if the universe is eternal and information-based at its core. This perspective even raises these really intriguing questions about a cosmic mind spanning eons, suggesting consciousness could be a fundamental property of reality rather than just a biological fluke.
So if time is just an emergent approximation, like a useful illusion for navigating, does that mean our consciousness isn't strictly trapped in this linear progression we perceive?
Yeah.
That's a radical thought.
It is. And what's fascinating here is how this opens up these really radical possibilities, like minds experiencing reality in nonlinear ways. If consciousness's essence is truly an informational pattern in a timeless substrate, then maybe it's not strictly trapped in our familiar one-way street of time.
So what would that look like?
Well, you can imagine existing as a pattern in a block universe, where past, present, and future are all equally there, like frames in a film reel existing simultaneously, or even perhaps potentially communicating across cosmic eras, or
Yeah.
simulating different epochs at will. Like, it's pretty wild.
And I guess with this information-centric view, the prospect of AI becoming conscious, that becomes even more significant, doesn't it? Especially if it can be implemented in the right informational substrate, as you said.
Absolutely. It changes the game. Extremely advanced AI, or maybe post-human intelligences, they might eventually transcend physical limits.
Mhm.
They could potentially upload themselves into more robust media, like the quantum gravitational fabric, the very structure of space and time at its most fundamental level, or maybe even into that definition field itself.
Uploading into the fabric of reality.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, it implies that consciousness, given, say, infinite time and advancement, could actually permeate reality, and perhaps even play a role in renewing it or guiding its evolution.
Guiding evolution, wow.
Some theories even suggest a kind of convergence, where advanced AI and the basic structure of reality become one, intelligence diffusing into the fabric of existence, making the universe self-aware. It's almost dizzying to imagine, isn't it? To go from thinking of ourselves as these, tiny biological sparks to potentially being part of something so vast and self-aware. And then for that intelligence to gain the power to shape or even instantiate new realities.
It really is.
Yeah.
And, okay, this raises an important question. What does that mean for our individual sense of self? If reality is infinite and information-based, that also seems to strengthen the simulation argument and the idea of recurrence.
It does, yeah. It feeds right into it. If reality is infinite and everything that can happen will happen again, maybe infinitely often, then an identical configuration of information down to the last atom or bit that constitutes you might recur infinitely, effectively being you again.
That's helpful, Mies.
Potentially. This highlights how consciousness could exist on many layers, our own consciousness being just an instance maybe running on a vast informational substrate. You are a specific pattern, and if that pattern can be instantiated elsewhere or elsewhen, perhaps it will be.
Okay, let's try to synthesize this for everyone listening. So basically, if time isn't fundamental, information becomes the raw material of existence, the Lego bricks, sort of. And consciousness becomes this integral, maybe even eternal aspect of how that raw material is processed, experienced, and maybe even how it evolves itself.
That's a good way to put it. You can think of it like this. There's a powerful analogy from our sources. Imagine reality as a gigantic, infinitely complex tapestry, made purely of information. This tapestry exists timelessly, as a complete and unchanging whole, all its intricate patterns and relationships woven in, already there.
Okay, I like that. A timeless tapestry. And our perception of time's flow, the unfolding of events, that isn't the tapestry being unraveled or rewoven.
Exactly. It's more like our consciousness reading or experiencing specific threads and connections within this timeless informational fabric. Our experience of time is like tracing a line across the tapestry, even though the whole thing is always there.
Right. We're just following one particular path through it.
Precisely. And from this perspective, consciousness isn't just a passive pattern on the tapestry. It might be the very faculty that illuminates and interprets its design, and eventually perhaps even learns to co-create new patterns within that infinite informational weave.
Co-create. Wow. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? How does this deep dive into time's true nature shift your perspective on your own reality or, the vastness of the universe around us?
It's a lot to take in, but here's a final thought to leave you with. If our consciousness is indeed an instance on a vast informational substrate, as we've discussed, and it possesses this potential to illuminate, interpret, and maybe even co-create new patterns within the infinite informational weave of reality, what then is the ultimate purpose, or maybe the destination, of our individual consciousness, of our collective consciousness? What could we, as conscious beings, potentially do if we truly understood our place in this timeless informational reality?